So I just want to show another example of kind of a cool use case for the scanner that we've been implementing on this project and will continue to use and implement on the next one. So we're using the scanner and its imagery and point cloud and all of that for close-in scans from in-wall to overhead, you name it. Before we close any drywall, we're scanning it and we have that documentation to go and reference back in the future. So with that, just kind of walk through couple of examples of ours and how we're using it and kind of the different strategies to go about it. So in my case, or this data set, this is a one of the guest room levels in our building. So it's 37 rooms with kind of a corridor that runs through the middle of everything. And so because we're using this for close-in, I'm not even going to export the point cloud. I'm really just exporting the imagery at each of these locations, but because of the point cloud information, when it exports that and using the Leica TrueView viewer, you still have all the accuracy of the point cloud just in an image form. So with this, when I go through and now I link everything together, you notice it's very linear. I'm not closing the loop on anything. Right, I just need to get the point cloud in the ballpark. I'm not overly concerned about keeping the registration as perfect and as tight as possible from one end to the other, because all I care about is in the individual setups and the points that are captured at those setups. So for us, it's more important to get good setups and good locations where you can see everything that you need. So down the road, when you're having to go back into this and you're trying to go and look at one of the setups, right? I want to see what's inside my wall, right? I don't care so much about the point cloud, I just care about this image. So with it though, and the fact that it still has the point cloud data, I mean in this case, right, I still have the point cloud that's part of this data set, so you're still going to have the same accuracies. So I have a 6-inch piece of backing, right? So I'm basically 6-inch, so I still have all that accuracy. But when I export, right, like I said, I'm just exporting the images, not exporting any of the point cloud to keep the file sizes down, to keep it lightweight, but I still retain all of that accuracy from the point cloud that it was captured with. So in this case, like I was saying, when I go through and link, it's very linear. I just basically whatever is simplest and easiest and fastest, because I don't need a super tight registration from one end to the other. So in this case, I got my corridor. I went through and I relabeled everything as well as all of the individual rooms. It's really simple. Just in your sitemap view, just go through here and then hold Control and you can multi-select. So in this case, I just selected my corridors, so I can right-click. I can go rename selected setups and use whatever naming convention you want, and you can see your example of how that works and how that changes as you go through and rename everything. So oops, I don't want to do that. But in any case, same thing goes for all your rooms, or if you don't have guest room numbers and you have kitchen on level 1, or you have back of house space, however you want to label it, you can go about it however you want. But once you're done with all of that, you got your links. I did a very little bit of point cloud cleaning, basically because there's so much glass. I do see some reflections from the scanner. So for me, I just went through and just deleted basically everything that's outside the glass, point wise, just to make sure it's nice and clean. And then from that, I go through and I will take a snapshot, and I'm going to update my thumbnail. So now when I go into my attachments, you'll see the snapshot I just captured. And then I can go through and set this as the project thumbnail. This will be important for when you export and when you're opening up that TrueView application with the LGS file. So that's why I would clean the points very little, just to kind of get you good outline, and then from there create the snapshot, update the project thumbnail. And so when you go into finalize, go accept, go through, it'll take the snapshot, generate the port. So this basically snapshot, when we go and open up the LGS, you'll see why that's important. And so from there, go through, save it wherever you need. For the publish options, you're just going to do an LGS. Save it wherever, but the export options, I disable my point cloud data because I don't need the 1.5 billion points. I'm just using the imagery. And also, because I went through and edited all my panorama images, I'm not even going to export the HDRs. So if I left everything from point cloud, panel, HDR, everything active. I think this file would have been about 15 gigabytes. When I disable the point cloud, it goes down to about 10 gigabytes. And then when I disable the HDR images and I just have my panel images, the JPEG images, it goes down to about 4.5 gigabytes for this data set, and that's 162 setups. So at which point you'd hit OK, and so once you get published, it's going to go through and export it with those settings and kind of pulling that sitemap. So what that looks like from the TrueView viewer, so I have my LGS file already exported, so I'll just double click that, open it up, and that gives us kind of a sitemap default view. So here is that sitemap, that image that we saved, right? So you zoom in, you can kind of get a closer look. You can see the corridor, the setup labels. You can see the room number. This is 1801. You can go to this one, see 1811. And from there, you're just going to double click on any of the setups to kind of get down into it. And so from that, if you're familiar with Matterport, you kind of have your setups that you can just kind of click and bounce around between. And from there, you can just kind of look around, look at what you need, see where stuff's at, and you can go about that way. You can also go into back into your sitemap view, and you go and look into, let's say I want to go into this bathroom. So alright, you can kind of bounce around that way a little faster if you need to go to all over the place. But then, like I mentioned before, even though we didn't export out the point cloud, when I come in here and I measure, right, so this backing, it's 6-inch backing, so I should have exactly 0.5 in my delta Z. My delta Z 0.499, so 6-inch on the dot. So you still have all of that accuracy, and then when you're pulling these measurements, you're really just basically line of sight. So as long as you can see it from the scanner's perspective, you can measure it. So you can go about pulling measurements and verifying where stuff's at, going about it in that way. So, but TrueView is its own kind of application. It's very simple, but it's just a basic viewer. You can do some basic measurements, you can do some sectioning if you have the point cloud enabled. You can have different coordinate systems if you need to pull north and east elevations, if you assigned coordinates to the data set before exporting. But it's just a good viewer, and then pretty simple. Just got to double click to bounce around, or if you do have the point cloud enabled, you can go look around the point cloud in the 3D view using your 3D view tools. So, but because I just have images, that's what I get. So that's kind of our close-in workflow using the scanner, and a quick example of TrueView Viewer and how our trades would go about using it. So hopefully that helps.